Hello, today I will be talking about Mentalese. Now, what is it? Mentalese began as a myth. It is supposed to be the universal language of thought. The inventor of this language is Jerry Fodor. He's the one who began thinking about Mentalese, and he was an American philosopher and cognitive scientist. He was regarded as an expert on this subject. Now, the definition of Mentalese is that we are all born with a mental operating system. It allows us to make mental representations for complex thought. So, to give an example, when someone shows you a picture of a cat and then you automatically think about the word cat. Well, this is because you see something and inside your mind you automatically link the thing to the word that you learned. So in this case, you see a cat and you automatically think about the word cat. So we are all pre-equipped with Mentalese at birth. Now, Mentalese has a forced stance. It is said that Mentalese is, well, it works like this. The mind is a computer, so it is a language of symbols, and it does not correspond with things in the real world. But a little bit more about that later. Now, what is the exact meaning of this language? Well, it's a language as instinct principle. Through pre-existing language of thought, Mentalese allows us to learn a language and to acquire meanings. So, I have given you the example of the cat before. Now, it works on the principle of rational thought. It's a combination of concepts that make up Mentalese. So we can think and draw inferences even without spoken language. This is also one of the reasons that support the existence of Mentalese. So a few examples. A mute person retains the ability to think, even though he can't speak vocally. Now, babies are able of basic types of thought processes. And to show this, there was an experiment, and it began like this. So you have 5 months old babies and 2 dolls. After a while, they begin to lose interest in the dolls. But when you add a 3rd doll, they suddenly regain interest. So what can we conclude from this experiment? Well, even babies are capable of keeping track of numbers. So there is that rational thought. Now, there is also something called transitive inference. It means that we have the ability to draw an indirect inference. Some species have this, but mostly primates like us humans. So here's an example to further explain this principle. How old is my sister if she was 15 years old when I was 17 years old and my current age is 19 years old? The answer, she is 17 years old. So you don't know the answer because when you read it at first you don't know, but because of the information that is shown, you can deduce the answer, and this is what we call transitive inference. Now, is Mentalese a language of words? No, as I've said, it's with symbols. You associate those symbols with meanings, and when you add complex propositions, we have the result of complex thoughts. Now, is Mentalese simple? No. There are no pronunciations because, after all, it is a language that you don't really speak, it's inside your head. There are also no language-specific distinctions. After all, Mentalese isn't English or German or Japanese. But Mentalese has no constraints. It doesn't have to correspond with linguistic forms. So you don't have to, for example, keep track of the rules of English or German. Now, as I've said before, Mentalese is often seen as a, well, kind of computer software. The mind is a computer. So the hardware is the brain, the software, the mind. So when we have thoughts, those are actually input, and the mind processes this into language and output. Now, is there evidence to support this claim? Well, Fodor says the only psychological processes that even seem remotely plausible represent such processes as computational. So Mentalese is the common language of thought that we all possess. Now, admittedly, there are two problems with Mentalese: symbol grounding and interpretation grounding. The first problem is, how do the symbols of Mentalese acquire their meanings? Well, they require real-world experience. For example, you have two men of different languages, let's say an Englishman and someone who's Chinese. The Englishman speaks English, but not Chinese, and the same goes for the Chinese man. He can't speak English, but he can't speak Chinese. Now, they can only communicate through a manual, because in the manual you have sentences that are translated to the other language, so they are symbols. They can use the symbols, but they don't really understand the symbols because they don't have any experience with it. Now, interpretation grounding is a bit different. You have to ask yourself, how are the symbols interpreted? If thoughts are interpretations, then who interprets those interpretations? Because after all, those thoughts are interpretations that we have inside our head. They are interpretations of things in the real world. But who is going to explain those to us? It will be like having a little elf inside your head who is doing that for you. So up until now, scientists still have no answer.